We're going to get started, calling meeting to order. It is 6:34, and first thing is our flag salute. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call.
Ms. Bolenbacher? I can't tell who's on, who's not. Absent. Mr. Chandler?
Here.
Ms. Compatello?
Here.
Mr. Lavasser? Not here. Mr. Marks? Here. Mr. Oliverio?
Here.
Mr. Radilla?
Here.
Mayor Perry?
Here.
Solicitor Corbel?
Here.
Engineer Minsterman?
Here.
And myself. We have a quorum.
All right, great. Okay, the consent agenda, the minutes from the October 27th, 2022, and bill list from November 10th of 2022 were all on the OneDrive for council to review.
Real quick, just
Yeah.
before, it looks like Ms. Bolenbacher is dialed in. I had to allow her to speak, so she's here.
Okay.
Aaron, can you hear us?
You should be able to unmute yourself now, Aaron, and talk.
All right. So the minutes and bill list were all on the OneDrive for council to review. We have a motion to approve the November 10th, 2022 consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Marks, Ms. Compatello, any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry, I'm a yes for that. I don't know if you guys heard me. I apologize.
Okay. Any opposed? Technology. It's fine. Yeah, it's fine. Okay, public comments on agenda items. So at this time, citizens may address the Crafton Borough Council on any issue appearing on today's agenda. Only residents and taxpayers of the Borough of Crafton will be permitted to address the council. Comments on non-agenda items will be taken at the end of tonight's meeting. Speakers will be permitted to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Groups of people will be required to designate a spokesperson to represent them before council, who may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. Please sign in and/or raise your hand on Zoom and state your name and physical address for the record. So we have some people here, and I'll just go in order from the sign-in sheet. And the first person is Norma McGinnis. Hi. So your name and address.
I'm used to being a teacher and, my address is 7 and 9 Bradford Avenue. So I'm at the top Bradford, obviously interested in speaking about this installation of the stop sign. But first, I do want to compliment everyone here tonight and anybody who isn't here about the streetscape and all the work that was done along Crafton. And we're looking forward to take it the rest of the way.
Mhm.
I think it's obviously a huge improvement. So way to go, guys. My concern is if we did all that safety work to slow cars down, and we already have 2 things there that are slowing things down, 2 stop signs, why take them down and then add 1? The math doesn't add up for me. Take 2, add 1. So I'm wondering why we're going about it, taking 2 down. I guess that's a question I'd like folks to speak to later in the meeting. And secondly, I read in minutes, I've kind of read through all the minutes regarding this and other issues. In September, someone spoke to the fact that you can't have 3 stop signs. It's illegal. So I'd like an explanation on that, or if someone could make me try to understand that. And I guess so if we have 2 and that's currently seems to be working, I don't know of any accidents that have been there in the last 12 years, leave it that way and err on what's working, or add a 3rd and make it even better, make it even safer. And finally, I guess if you're voting on it tonight or whenever you're going to vote, think about the safety of the kids that have to walk there, the parents, some of whom I'm hoping are here tonight, that have to walk that crosswalk, crossing guards that are up there working that the crosswalk in that intersection, people that have to go up to the apartments. Let's try to think about the safety of it. Am I under my minutes?
Okay.
Thank you all.
Is that
Thank
it?
you,
Okay,
Chris.
thank you. Thank you. All right, next person's Michael Hugh.
Hi, I'm Michael Hof, and that's fine. I've heard every mispronunciation. I answered all of them. It's totally good. I've never heard one I haven't heard before. So I live at 38 Bradford Avenue. I'm also wanted to just speak on the Bradford Avenue stop sign options. I haven't been privy to a lot of the options that were maybe proposed, but I also agree with Norma that the idea to make the intersection of Bradford Avenue and Crafton Boulevard a three-way stop makes the most sense. It's something residents have been asking for well over a decade. There have been fatal casualties with pedestrians and motor vehicles there in the past. 2006 was the last fatal accident, unfortunately. I do have 3 small children who cross that crosswalk every single day, multiple times. I also would like to know a little bit more about the idea of removing the ones on Crafton Boulevard. Again, part of the idea with the streetscaping and the redesign of the corners was to slow traffic. There is over a quarter-mile stretch of Crafton Boulevard that exists that does not have a stop. It starts at Stratmore all the way up in Crafton Heights. The next one is Hawthorne. You come down that hill, you can get going pretty quick, you know? So I'd be curious. I mean, a three-way stop makes a lot of sense. That's the first I've heard that 3 stop signs is illegal. I can point to you many 3-way stop signs. I don't know if that's a Crafton thing or if that's a Allegheny County thing or a state thing, but I can point to many 3-way stops. So I'd just be curious to know more about that too. So,
Okay, great.
thank you.
Thank you. And we will, for the information on the Bradford sign, we do have our engineer. He'll be speaking to that tonight and all the different options. He's actually very ill, but he'll be on soon. Okay, Jim Shriver.
Jim Shriver, 39 Bradford, Crafton, also a member of the Crafton School Board. So I'm just here to express appreciation for council for the partnership we've had in the last couple of years and the great work that was done on the streetscape. And then also to voice my support for you considering whatever thoughtful development options might be available down at the Linden Avenue property and the study that I saw on your agenda. So thank you for very much for everything you've done. And again, voicing my support for that study. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Alicia. Okay. Thank you.
I've heard every
Every,
mispronunciation.
you guys are trying to trick me too.
So Alicia Bukowski, 1506 Bar Ave. And I am doing a complete reversal of the previous gentleman and questioning Linden. I am here with how many representing the Carlinton Little Cougars. That is our practice field. We just found out about, I just found out about this today, about the potential selling of that land.
Wait,
That
just to be clear, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but there is nothing on here about selling that.
well, about doing. Or reconstituting, we'll say, that land, whatever the project is, we are just here voicing our concern because that is our practice field for our kindergarten through 6th grade Little Cougars football and cheerleading. Which obviously includes kids from Crafton and Carnegie. We're a family. We actually we pay rent on that field to the school board every month. So I don't know if anyone was aware of that. But so we're just here. We want to know what's going on with it. If we lose that field, we have nowhere to go. We won't have a team. We won't have an organization. sports are important, I think, for teamwork, child development. Yeah, I mean, we have one of our players here. So, I mean, we just want to make sure that whatever is happening with this space, especially because we do pay rent, we would like to be involved. We would like to know ahead of time. I don't really know what else to say. I mean, you can see how many of us turned out because of our concern. Anything else?
You have to sign in.
Was there?
Okay.
Yeah. Where do we fit? So, thank you.
Thank you. All right. We have nobody here. Do we have anybody on Zoom?
Yeah, we have one person on Zoom with their hand up. All right, Cody, went ahead and allowed you to speak. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Cody Sheets, Promenade Street. Mr. Oliveria, I think it's kind of, little misleading to attempt to insinuate that maybe you guys aren't thinking about selling that property, because that's exactly what's going on. What I would like to know is two questions: what's going on, and why is Crafton? I'm glad that Jim Shriver is there to hear this question too. Why is Crafton paying $17,000 to do a study on a land that is only 1/3 theirs? And that'll do that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else? That's it? Okay. All right. Engineers report. So Mr. Minsterman, like I said, is on the Zoom because he's sick. So he's going to go over his engineers report. Rick?
Hey, everyone. Glad to be here in spirit anyway. So first I wanted to talk about the stop sign issue and say that there are three options. The options are leaving the situation as it is, removing the vegetation that's required in order to keep the stop sign on Crafton Boulevard. So as you pull up on on Bradford, the sight distance is blocked partially by vegetation along the sidewalk on both sides, looking up and down the road in order to pull out. So that option of just having the one stop sign would require some vegetation removal. And just so you know, even if that vegetation is not within your right of way, you can, by state law, traffic law, require that vegetation be removed or trimmed to create the necessary sight distance for that stop sign. So that's option number two. One is to leave it alone. Two is to just have one stop sign on Bradford. And the third option is to leave everything as it is and install stop signs on all three approaches on Crafton Boulevard. So you'd have the three-way stop, and the three-way stop is legal, and that is one of the three options that you have. That's the first item on my report. The other is more lengthy, and it's related to the consent order and compliance with the consent order by Crafton. Also, it's to talk about that the projects have done as it relates to increasing the percent capture, which is a requirement of the Clean Streams law that Crafton has made some huge advancements toward. So if you want me to get into the consent order stuff first or hold and talk about the stop sign.
Can we, can we go back to the stop sign first? There were some comments from residents here tonight, so I'd like to focus on that one first. As we've been doing the street project, the Crafton Boulevard project that has involved repaving the street and doing some traffic calming while we did that, the issue came up about thinking about how to make that intersection safer. And there was interest in a three-way stop, which is what I had been interested in, and several other people were interested in. And so that's where this effort to ask our engineer to look into our options came from. It was a desire to have a three-way stop. And the initial response that came back was that because of PennDOT rules, we could not have a three-way stop in that location due to, I don't know, amount of traffic, I guess. But we're hearing tonight that it sounds like our engineers have been looking further and that we can do a three-way stop. So I'd like to get some further clarification on that.
Yeah, that's the third option, is to put all three stop signs in and have it a three-way stop.
I could probably add a little bit to that. With the addition of the bump outs, and there was a traffic study done 10, 15 years ago. And that's what we were basing the three-way stop sign. It wouldn't be warranted. It's not illegal. You just can't enforce it. However, with the bump outs and the vegetation that has since grown since that initial study, because of the inadequate visibility, it would warrant a three-way stop sign. So that is allowable and would be enforceable.
Yeah,
Thank
good
you.
point, Doug. That was the issue. I think that was the issue in the beginning, Kirsten, is that there was nothing changed. So now with the advancement of the bump outs and the project, it did give us the opportunity to relook at that situation.
I will just add, because we had a lot of questions tonight, for some additional context for our residents who are here. Because we've been doing the traffic calming along that street, we thought, given that we're slowing traffic on Crafton Boulevard, if we have to choose where the stop sign should be, if we can't do a three-way stop, it seemed to make more sense to look at the option of having it be on the street that did not have traffic calming. It's very unusual to have an unrestricted left turn, and it's much more common to allow the unrestricted traffic to be on the through street, which would be Crafton Boulevard. And we thought, because of the traffic calming that we done, that slowed traffic enough that it made it easier to cross that street without a traffic or without a stop sign, and harder to cross the Bradford without a stop sign. So that was why we did look into, we asked our engineer to look into the option of potentially moving that. But the initial request that started this whole effort was a desire to have a three-way stop. And I personally continue to think that's a good idea. I just wanted to give that context to where this initial, where this effort to look into making changes in that came from. And I appreciate the clarifications we heard tonight from the engineer that it looks like we can continue to look into a three-way stop with our new situation there.
Thank you.
So from a council perspective, if we want to have some discussion around this, because if we decide to do the three-way stop, we would need to, pass an ordinance for that. So that's not on the agenda for tonight, but I think it'd be valuable to have some discussion around what the residents or what the council members feel.
Yeah, so I'll go real quick. I mean, I support a three-way stop, so I'd like to see if there's enough support tonight that we explore putting in, getting an ordinance together and doing whatever we need to do, get it advertised and then get a motion on the agenda as quick as we can.
Yep, I agree. I support a three-way stop.
Agreed.
Agree as well.
Okay. So we have, it seems, full agreement. Does the mayor want to speak about it at all?
Hallelujah.
Okay. So it sounds like there's full agreement from a council perspective for a three-way. So for the next meeting, doing the actions that we need through the ordinance and then the vote and everything else. We can put that on the agenda for our next meeting. Okay. Very good. All right. Now the phase 2 sewer EDD report.
Okay, sounds
We
good.
all have-
So, are you gonna pull that up,
we all
Doug?
have-
'Cause then-
Oh, yeah. Oh. I'm not gonna be able to
Okay.
see that.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share it. Give me 1 second. All right, there we go.
Okay, I can see it very well. I'm not sure if you can. So let's see. Let's start with the columns that we will be paying attention to. So on the left, the first column is the designation, the number of the point of connection, the CSO, the combined sewer overflow. Next column to look at is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns over the 77.6%.
Yeah.
The updated percent capture. So that column represents the column to the left is the original percent capture from the 2008 modeling. And then there was additional data provided. And so therefore, Elkasan through Three Rivers Wet Weather did a updated percent calculation. And so you can see what those percent captures are for each of the CSOs. They're called combined sewers, but they're numbered C19, 20, 22, 23, 24, 25, and then you see the other 2 CSOs. So all of those are the responsibility of Crafton. I should say, if you go to the 4th column over where it says combined sewer area, it also designates how much of the area is designated as combined. And that's really what we're after tonight, is to see what proportion of each community, Crafton, Ingram, and the city of Pittsburgh through PWSA, for example, on C19, you see the different percentages of responsibility for that work to get that percent capture to 85%. So you just using C19, you see there's 3 communities involved. Each had a percentage that was allocated for responsibility. But when we redid the numbers, we reevaluated what those percent captures were. If you go over to the next 3rd column that's colored in yellow, the 77.6%, those are the numbers that we're reporting. If you keep going to the right, there's the 3rd, yeah, right there. And if you look to the left, you see 6% for Crafton now for the combined sewer area. So based on the new modeling and the percentage of capture, there are different percentages. So actually, in this case, Crafton increased its percent capture. Increased its percent of the responsibility for C19. But you can see 77.6% is pretty close to 85. It doesn't appear that it will take a very large project to finally meet that 85%. But what is needed to be explained is that you only have 6% of the responsibility to meet the 85%. And then you can see what Ingram and the city of Pittsburgh, what their contributions are. So,
Mr. Minsterman,
yes.
Can I ask why the total for this, for C19 isn't 100% when you add them all together?
Because there's sanitary sewer contributions to the right of those columns.
Oh, okay. So we have to combine 2 columns. Thank you.
Right. We're ignoring the sanitary sewer because even though there is flow from the sanitary sewer going to the combined system, it doesn't count. So we're only going to be focusing on the percent ownership by area. How much area does each community have flowing to this this overflow C19? So also I want you to notice that as we move to the right on the columns, you see TBD. That just means to be determined. And what that is actually referencing is that the idea that we're still not 100% sure on some of the flow data because Ingram is still doing their assessment. So we actually asked for an extension on C19 to work directly with Ingram and the city of Pittsburgh to finalize all the numbers. And who knows, that 77% may increase after Ingram comes back with the work that they've done and the monitoring that they've done over time. So that number could get better. Once we do find out what that final number is, then we'll be able to identify what work needs to be done, what the project is, and then how the communities will proportion that cost. But you can see the percentages already that have been allocated for that. So that's C19. That's the most complicated one. I probably shouldn't have started with that one. But so C19 overall is in pretty good shape, but we still need some work with Ingram and the city of Pittsburgh to come up with that final number. C20.
Mr.
Yes.
Minsterman, could you remind us what our consent order percentage is? Because we have a large audience here, many of whom have not heard anything about this.
Okay, I thought I mentioned that we are trying, the attained value is 85% capture. That's required by the Clean Streams law. And that is the ultimate. And just an idea as to what that means, percent capture. So if when rain falls on an area that drains to this C19 overflow, if all of the water came through the piping and went to Alcosan, that would be 100% capture, which means all the water, including the sewage, was 100% of it was captured and sent to the treatment plant. In this case, though, because combined sewers, when it rains really hard and the sewers are surcharged and sometimes even overflow, the water doesn't get to the sewage treatment plant. It goes to the stream. And in this case, C19 is right behind where the old Sharp Edge used to be, the restaurant there, is where the overflow is. So when the system gets overwhelmed, it discharges some of the flow, which is dilute sewage, goes into the stream. So in this case, 12.4% of that flow, 24.4% of the flow goes out of the system. You're only allowed 15% to go out, which means you capture 85%. So that's the background for 85. So it's 85% of the water that hits that drainage area needs to get to the treatment plant. Right now for C19, our estimate is that only 77.6% is getting there.
Right, and could you just add one last detail, and before we get down to some of these others, is that if we have lower current capture, we have a minimum improvement for this consent order.
Yes, I was going to mention that when we get to that, but that is a good point. Okay. Our ultimate attainment is 85%, but if in a case where the percent is much lower that we're capturing, and let's say like in C22, we're only capturing 48, or at least it was understood to be 48.3%. That would mean we would need another, I don't know, not good on the math here, but another 32% or maybe 37% capture. So they've capped that, because a 37% increase in capture would be a very hard undertaking. So 10 percentage points is the minimum that we can raise the percent capture if we can't attain 85%.
Thank you.
Oh, sure thing. Any more background you think is needed? Those are good points.
I think we're good.
Okay, so C20 is also, as you can see, a to be determined. The reason for that is when we were doing the evaluation of C19 and C20, we stumbled on what's called as a cross connection, which means that the two drainage areas, the two sewage areas are connected by a pipe. That's unusual. So when C20 fills up, it essentially can go and discharge out to C19. And the reverse can happen. C19 could fill and part of that flow could discharge to C20. So that makes the modeling very difficult. So while we installed a flow meter in that cross connection and we're monitoring if any flow goes from 19 to 20 or 20 to 19, and it'll also quantify that flow and tell us how much is going, and therefore we can adjust the model, which would adjust the percent capture. So that's why that one's on hold as well, just so that we have the time to monitor. Monitoring usually takes several months. So we're in that monitoring process now. In any event, right now it's standing at 71.8%, still a decent percent capture, but still we'll finalize that number when we get the information from our flow monitoring. So next, C22. I will say too that the C20 project, we did projects in just about all of these overflow areas. In C20, we did a rain garden that was along the parking area for the park, for Crafton Park. And I know I said that the final percent capture was to be determined, but just depending, if we sort of ignore that cross connection, it looks like we gained about 2.5 percentage points just from that that small rain garden alone. But we'll know that for sure, but I just wanted to pass that along. Next is C22. C22 is was impacted by the Crafton Boulevard project. So you can see, if you go back to the yellow columns in the beginning there, you'll see 48.3%. Excuse me. 48.3% is what was originally calculated by Helcasan and reported for that overflow. So you can see that's very low percent capture. If you move to the right and you get to the column under the TBDs where it's 60.7%, that is the new percent capture as a result of the Crafton Boulevard project. So we gained another 12.5% percentage points with the C22, I'm sorry, with the Crafton Boulevard project. So ultimately that means we still need to do a project in C22. And that's what the red means to the right. Basically, it says, based on paragraph 5 of the consent order, that because we're not at 85%, we at least need to do a 10% project. Now, the good news is that the next project that is on the agenda or has been approved is Broadhead. And Broadhead is actually will be a more impactful project than Crafton Boulevard on C22. So we're somewhat optimistic. We could get 25 percentage points out of Broadhead to make the 85%, which is well above what needs to be done. And by the way, the timeline on that is that next year we'll be evaluating what projects need to be done. In this case, Broadhead for 22 is already done. But in C20, since it's below 85%, we will have to identify a project for that one. But basically, that project would get us maxed at 10%. So on C22, I'm sorry, to finish that thought, the work to identify the project is in 2023. And then we have 24, 25, and 26 to actually install the project. So we still have 3 years after next year when we identify what the project is. So that would help, depending on what the cost of the project is, we can spread that cost over the 3 years if needed. Okay, back to 22. We talked about Crafton Boulevard. We talked about Broadhead, the new project. And even if it doesn't get us fully to 85%, it will get us at a minimum the 10 percentage points we need to comply with this order. And then they're estimating the next order will be in 2028 is when another 5 or 6 year order will come out to either get to 85% again or to get 10 percentage points. But we think C22 is basically going to be taken care of. Now, C23 is the next project, is the next overflow. And you can see we went from 70% to the 98.8%. So that was a big jump. And that was a result of the South Grandview project. So that project has been completed, and that had a great impact and got us to the 85% plus in that case. So no projects, no future work in C23. C24, you could see this one was complicated because what ends up happening is C24. So the piping from the area that drains from C25 and the area that drains from C24, they come all the way down to Chartiers Creek, and then they combine into one pipe, and then they discharge out of C24. So in actuality, there are two overflows there. There's one overflow coming from two sources. So we separated those and we monitored the flow in each one individually, because El Casan just decided to ignore C24 and look at it as one overflow in C25. And that was what they originally did. They said to be determined at 82%. Then they looked at the 2020 model, and they basically just took the percent capture and assigned it to both. Once again, not accurate. So we were able to break those out. C24 is now showing at 95%. And the reason for the increase from 65 to 95 is Fountain Sycamore and Fountain Woodlawn projects. Those are two separation projects that were completed, and that led us to meet the requirement for C24, which as you can see, if you go back over to the fourth column over where it says combined sewer area, we're 100%. So that project, that responsibility is 100% of Crafton. Now, while you're in that column, when we jump to C25, you can look at what was originally proposed. You see Green Tree was at 0% and Crafton was at 4%. So remember, that's your contribution. So, but one of the loopholes in the order is that if you're not at least 5% contributing to an overflow, you don't have to participate in increasing the percent capture to 85. So when you swing over and look at the number, the 62.7%, even though that's below 85%, because Crafton is such a small portion of that overflow, that we won't be part of that project. That'll have to be handled by the city of Pittsburgh, essentially, because even Green Tree has 0% flow, combined flow, that is, because they're a separate community. So even though 25 doesn't meet the percent capture, we're still off the hook. So the next two, these CSOs with long numbers 039, E001, and J001, those are very small areas, like almost one street is all that's created for those overflows. So as you see, the E001 has met its goal, and the J001 is close. And once again, that's such a small area. It will take such a small project to meet that goal. So that'll be determined, like I said, next year when the projects will have to be developed. So one for J009, that will be a very small project, and one for C20. And we don't know how big that is yet until we finish the modeling based on that cross connection. So that is it. To me, this is really good news. Nearly all of the CSOs, you were going to have to put together a project, and because of the forethought of the Crafton Council, this work is done and mostly done, I should say. And also those funds to do the separations were all grow projects where you received a high percentage of grant funds. So this is really great news. Years ago when this was starting, and there was, some folks were for it and some were against it. And I think they were against it because they just didn't understand. But now that it's done and it's completed, this is a massive relief, because to start now and to try to get the grow funds are almost done. So the millions that you've received in grow funds you may not have if you waited and started now to see all these really low percent captures and try to do projects to complete them. So that is it. I hope that is not too long, but you know, it takes a little while to sort through this. So if there are any questions.
Any questions? Council? Mr. Mark?
Mr. Missman, when's the next time we should check when we plan on like checking in and looking at these numbers again? I know that you said we have one more project already queued up and ready to go. And I imagine you all will continue to monitor the flows and stuff. When can we expect another update on it?
So when these numbers are all complete, so they won't be monitored or checked until C20 gets a project, and we'll do post monitoring after the project to see what the new percent capture is. And that will be 5 years from now. And on the J001 project, same thing. We'll do post monitoring once we install that project, look at the effectiveness and come up with a new percent capture. So once those are done in 5 years and we recalibrate and recalculate what the percent capture is, if they're less than 85%, then you'll get another order in 2028 that will require you to get to 85%. So you'll start the process over. You'll monitor. Well, in this case, we'll already have the post monitoring, which will be the pre-monitoring for the next cycle. So yeah, that type of work's completed. All of the monitoring and the modeling is done. Like I said, next step is next year is to identify where the high areas of I&I are in C20, identify cost-effective projects, estimate the amount of flow we can remove to get to 85%, then take the next 25 through 27 to install it.
In the meantime, we'll continue talking about this because we will be identifying some of the smaller projects, and the large one that was mentioned, the Broadhead project, that's been in conceptual design, but we've talked about that in our last few meetings. We did not get as much grant funding this year, so we're not proceeding with it immediately, but we're going to continue seeking additional funds to be able to additional grant funding so that we hopefully can minimize how much we have to pay out of our own pocket. And we do have a few years to be able to do that. So we're going to continue looking for more grant funding next year before we proceed with the next stages of the Broadhead project.
I'd like to acknowledge the past councils that pushed these projects, which were extremely difficult to do, including grant money. So it wasn't money necessarily from all of Crafton residents. It's grant money that was state money, and our representatives and senators helped us with that. And then the continued support of this council, the new council, in pursuing these additional projects. This is important stuff because essentially when you think about it, the sewer, when you flush your toilet, when the stormwater comes down and where it goes is really important. And that's where the consent order comes. This is all of the communities have to follow this consent order. So this isn't just something for Crafton, but the advantages our prior councils were able to jump on this early so that we're not behind the deadlines now. So, all right. Anything else, Mr. Minsterman?
That is it for me.
Great. Hope you feel better. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like me to hang around for the rest of the meeting? Anything else for me?
Kirsten, anything on yours? Okay. Okay. It's up to you.
Well, I'm going to call it a night.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Take
All
care.
right.
Bye.
Okay, that's the engineer's report. Oop. And next is president's report. So the only item I have, which is on the agenda, is the Linden Avenue property. I wanted the solicitor to give a little bit of history about the Linden property itself, because this has been, I think, a project that's been 5 years in discussions and then stalled off, and now it's come back. So I wanted to get a little history if you're able to.
Yeah, sure. So we've been here before, talking about this property at least. The first time I believe was in 2018. I'm looking at the mayor because I know the mayor was here. at
Yes,
that
but I
time.
think before you go any further, we do want to say that the whole thing was initiated by the school board.
Yes.
Okay,
Right.
Yes. Yes, so the Linden property, if you think about it, it's the field, the football field, and then the front part is the Borough's property, which is the mini golf and the sign, etc. The whole parcel is about 5.25 acres. So the Borough's portion is like 24% and the school district is 76%. And so the district did approach the borough about an opportunity to sell the property to a developer. And we went through iterations in 2018, I believe, which ultimately council voted not to move forward with that.
and can I just?
Go ahead. Any color commentary, I'd love
All
it.
right,
Yeah.
and the council at that time elected not to move forward because two of the times that we had public comment over it, we had over 50 residents come to council to voice their opposition to the plan as it was.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And that plan was for a gas station and a separate commercial area for other commercial endeavors, restaurants or shops, etc. Then I think we started to go down the path again in 2020 or 2019 again. I do have documents that I prepared back in 2020 about advertising an ordinance for intergovernmental cooperation agreement with the district where we would have, but that did not go anywhere with this council again. And all along, the developer is still interested in the property. Multiple developers have been, and I think it's the current council, which if you look around the room and on the Zoom, like everyone is new, hadn't really been down the path before, and they're interested in learning about, and this may be where John can take over. If that property were to be developed, there is this history of not really being excited about a gas station, convenience store type of scenario. Is there anything else that might work down there? And, none of us, the council members, solicitor, engineer, we can't figure that out. So they have decided to ask other entities that have that expertise to take a look and report out to the council and to the school district as well as to what might be a fit down there, what could work or not work. And that's what this motion, if I'm reading it correctly, that's what this is about, is moving forward with that study to see if there's any possible use that may be higher or better than a gas station or more acceptable to the community, et cetera, moving forward. So that's really where we are in a real nutshell, quite frankly.
And I think the one other critical thing to mention, particularly for the people who are here, and then I think that we'll ask Jim to make some comment about that as president of the school board. But there is the awareness of how important the Little Cougars are and how important that space is to them. So any development that would happen there would have to provide for alternate space. And there's a lot of different ways that can happen, either, by the borough finding other projects, other property, and sometimes the developers themselves would contribute to that effort. But as the mayor, I no longer have a vote, but I do know that the spirit and the intention of this council, and I do believe the school board as well, is to not leave the Little Cougars out to dry with no place.
I would also like to add a bit more to this conversation. So just be very clear. Again, the borough does not own the ball fields that you all are here about tonight. We are trying to be good neighbors and good partners with the school district, but the ball field is school property. It is not borough property, and the borough property that's involved in this is the mini golf area. I have been involved in this a little bit longer than some of our other council members, other than Mayor Perry, because this did come across the Planning Commission a few years ago, and I have been a member of the Planning Commission throughout that time. And we did a workshop, and we've met with the school district, and we heard from residents, and it's very well understood that there's a lot of community opposition to some of the ideas that were initially out there. But we also understand that we don't own the entire property. The school district owns some of this property, and they have been exploring ideas about selling the site. We are trying to be good neighbors, and we understand that even if the school district is a separate entity, this is something that impacts a lot of our residents, a lot of our children. It impacts our taxes if the school is struggling with their budget. And so we have been talking with them about their thoughts for that site and what they need from it. And we have been looking into ways that we can work together for the overall benefit of the community. And that leads us to what we have been looking into over the past number of months that's on the agenda tonight. We have talked about doing a market study, which would give us more data and more understanding about the various different options and how they would impact our community over time beyond simply a one-time sale price. You know, what would the overall community impact be for quality of life, for traffic, for property, property values, and any number of other things. And so that is where this council has come into this conversation. We have been looking to give ourselves more information so that we can best represent the needs of the community. It is not on our agenda tonight to sell any properties. I hope that I've given a bit of, I'll pass it over to John.
Yeah, absolutely. And we cannot sell the ball field. That we don't own the ball field. Again, we only own the mini golf area. And really looking at, from a council perspective, earlier this year, the school board approached us and said, there's an interest there in Linden property. We'd like to work with you on that. And council, during executive session, because it is real estate, discussed what are our options. And it was a really thoughtful discussion. So it wasn't, we need to make money, we need to do this. We looked at, just in general, and we said, the best thing to do here is an assessment, a feasibility study, see what possibly could be done with that area. And that's a big parcel of land in itself. So we're not considering, we don't have, in front of us things from people making options or bids or anything. In fact, if we ever got to that point, we would have public meetings, we would have all of those things way before we got to that side where we would even consider any offers. And I can tell you, from this council, from myself, from the mayor, we are looking at what's best for Crafton. And the school board also is a partnership for that. So again, we don't want to, kick out the little cougars. We don't want to, make it a place where people don't want to go or cause traffic issues or shine lights into people's houses. We've talked about all of those things, and we appreciate all of your feedback. But at this point right now, we're just looking to do a feasibility study. So what's best for that land? They may come back with a recommendation is just leave it as it is. There's nothing you can do. They may come back with, who knows, what might be some other options, but they are a third party. And I think gives us the basis to, if we decide to move forward, we have the research done. And we don't have a lot of the knowledge from past councils or past decisions. Any of that we're taking it from a clear perspective here.
And given that it is a feasibility study, it's unlikely to come back with a single recommendation. We should do this, we should not do that. It is more likely to come back with a series of scenarios that give us information about what the impact of different types of things would be, so that we can more fully understand what the impact of different types of changes on that site would be. What would it mean for our tax rates? What would it mean for our property values? What would it mean for additional upkeep required on our roads, for example? We would like to understand all of those impacts, because if we do, you know, again, that this was all originated by the school district and we're trying to be good partners with them, but we also want to understand if something changes with their property and they would like us to work with them on that, we want to understand what the impact for the community long-term would be as well. And I think that's what this whole council has been trying to do. And that's where this agenda item has come from.
And it's also zoned residential. So zoning would have to change. So just so it's, and I'm correct in saying that it is completely zoned
Yeah,
residential.
that's correct. And in order for the zoning to change, either this council would have to agree to change it by ordinance, or you would have to get what's called a use variance from the zoning hearing board, and that's very difficult. You have to basically say the property can't be used for what it's zoned for, and I don't think you could meet that burden. So that's why, at the end of the day, this has to be a partnership everybody has to be on board.
So I think we did have a question from a resident earlier about this agenda item too, regarding the cost and the fact that 27% or whatever of that parcel is 24% of that parcel belongs to the borough and the rest to the school. And why are we footing 100% of the bill for this study? And I don't know that we, I don't know that we hit on that point yet.
Absolutely. So first, we did do a RFP for this and we sent it out. We received bids for it. Doug actually negotiated the bids down to this, and these things do cost money. I mean, they're not free, and there's a lot of work involved into them. We've approached the school board about this, about sharing in the cost with us. The school board itself, I think, had some various opinions of, about what they want to do around the feasibility study or their contributions. So, for us, we look at it and say, this is the right direction for us to go. So we're willing to look at and foot the bill for this, but potentially, the school board might have an interest in contributing if something would happen, whether it be progress, developments, or whatever, and then possibly sharing in the costs. Answer the residents.
So there is one more small detail. As we've talked about, we have framed that we own that front piece of property, but there is a clause that the solicitor might want to speak to.
Yes, so the property has been deeded to the borough so long as it's being used for a municipal purpose. If at any time the borough would stop using it for a municipal purpose, say to build a gas station, which we're not doing, and a gas station wouldn't fit on the borough's property, it would revert back to the school district. So that's sort of what the agreement, intergovernmental cooperation agreement that was proposed, was how that would proceed. And we negotiated terms with the district over the splitting of the fees and what would happen if the development never came to pass. And but again, that all went by the wayside at the meeting because the public turned out multiple times, et cetera. But yeah, it's not ours free and clear is what they would say in the sense of the word. So we can't do whatever we want there. We just have to, as long as we continue for municipal uses like the mini golf or something else, then it's the boroughs. Don't have the full property right in that portion of the overall parcel.
Right. And then I think to put like the final fine point on it is that for most of the things that might be considered, it's the whole piece of property. And then that brings us back to, we need to cooperate.
Okay. Well, great. So we've had lots of discussion. There is a proposed motion to engage Fourth Economy, which was the winner of the RFP, to assist the borough in conducting an assessment for Linden Avenue property at a cost of not to exceed $17,500.
So moved.
Mr. Mardillo,
Second.
Ms. Compitello. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right, that's all I have for my report tonight. Next is the mayor's report.
I have nothing to report. We have many other things to discuss tonight.
Okay. Solicitor's report.
We are working on a ordinance to codify the state law and update the borough's current fireworks ordinance, which is now outdated because of the new state law. Should have that to council before the next meeting for us to start to look at and chew on before it will come before you for a vote. I mean, I'm expecting that vote on this probably won't occur till after the first of the year. So it'll be a process.
I did receive some questions about that from residents. So since we're here, could you recap what that state law is, what we are doing and why?
So the new state law, it prohibits you from using what's called consumer fireworks. These are not the fireworks that Crafton puts off on the 4th of July, or you see down at the point or something. Those are called display fireworks. This regulates the fireworks that you can buy at the roadside stands, Phantom fireworks, someplace like that. It doesn't apply to things like sparklers or toy caps or pops, or mostly things that make loud booms or are projectiles that fly into the air. But the state law says that you can't use those types of fireworks within 150 feet of a structure. That could be a home, a garage, a commercial building, or a vehicle. And we took a look at this. And when you look at the borough, there really isn't a place or two where that would be doable, right? Like your neighbor isn't going to be able to set off fireworks in their backyard under state law. And so council talked about it and we landed on, let's just put that in our code. And there is a fine associated with the state law. If you violate it on one occasion, it's a $500 fine, and second violations and beyond are at least $1,000. Plus you'll get hit for court costs and maybe attorney's fees, et cetera. So it's not an inexpensive endeavor to do that. So is there another angle that you wanted me to address?
Well, but we did not pass a ban and we did not create a permit system. So we are simply following the state law as it is.
Yeah, that's where a lot of communities are falling. Like the state said you can't do it, so let's just do it. There'll be more of an educational aspect to this, but we'll have to communicate so folks know. I can't imagine that you're going to get a citation if you do it and didn't know. But if you're a repeat offender, I'm sure that it will be enforced. But we do understand that there's an educational angle here that folks are going to have to understand what the rules are. So
And what that does mean for residents, we did a rough assessment of the borough to see how many areas we thought would actually allow fireworks under the new state law, and it seemed like there were virtually none. But we did not codify any of that. So if there are occasional bits of property within their borough, and there probably are very, very occasional bits of property within the borough that do fall outside of what the state law doesn't allow, or if there are areas on your property that are more than the 150 feet away, as long as you're in compliance with the state law, that is what we went with. We did not pass any additional bans or create any additional permits.
in the state law, we would also be banning fireworks from, borough parks. I think they probably are already, but we would just make sure that that was clear: sidewalks, parking lots, roads, those sorts of things. So as Ms. Compatello said, there are very few locations, if any, that exist in the borough. You probably could have banned them if you want to, which the state law would permit, but council just wants to codify the rules and go from there.
And to really drive the point home about it being a state law, if anybody in Crafton dislikes the ban, it's not something we've decided here. You should probably talk to your state representatives and see if you can get it changed at that level.
And our current ordinance, I don't know if that was mentioned, but our current ordinance is out of date. So it definitely needs updated.
If you want to convince the legislature to go back, I mean, you know how politics are today, but that was pretty much a unanimous bipartisan decision to make this change because of the complaints that folks are getting since they allowed consumer fireworks in Pennsylvania 5, 6, 7 years ago. So it'll be an uphill climb, I think, but you can always try.
That's all.
That's all I have for my report.
Okay, manager's report.
In the OneDrive was my written report. One correction, we responded to 26 one call notifications, not 16. And then also wanted to let council know we have put an order in the budget, which we'll be talking about. There is to replace truck 111 because of the challenging environment with the global automotive industry. Municipal trucks can only be ordered for a 3-day window. So we put in an order for a chassis between November 7th and November 10th. So we do have an order in. These will be built next year and we'll receive it sometime in probably the fall of next year. So and the last item, we are out collecting leaves. We're finally getting ahead of it a little bit. I think we caught up today. We will be out tomorrow. And we have been out on the weekends as well as into the evening hours, just getting these leaves. It's been a perfect storm for dry weather and the leaves have all fallen. So, but we are catching up and we will be out and about until, December.
That's what the solicitor had just said. They all dropped on one day. It seemed like all the leaves went down one day and that was it. Okay, standing committee reports, finance and administration, Ms. Perry.
All right, so what we have for tonight is to review the changes that the minor changes that that council had asked for at the last budget meeting and to look at those. And basically the goal tonight for that is to be happy enough with the budget the way it stands to approve a motion to advertise because we are required to advertise to the public and make the budget available in the borough office for inspection. So we're going to do that. And then also we have what our president refers to as our placemat, but a worksheet that shows all of these projects that we've been working on, that we are planning, where the bond money that we have, how much of that is being used, how much grant money, and where particularly where we took a couple of the projects off of originally planned for 2023 and what that's going to look like in the future years and what the planning is for that. And so I think I'm turning this mostly over to Marilyn Landis at this point, or Doug, are you putting it up?
Oh, there we go.
Okay, so really the main thing, if I yeah. All right, so yeah, so let's just go to the community tab because that really was the only thing that was brought up. Can we get her microphone?
Yeah, the budget, just so for those who are not familiar with this format, we have a combined budget which puts everything together in one place, but it also breaks it down into the various components so that we can see them as one unit. So when council was looking at this, there were community activities and there was recreation, and they said they're really one and the same. Can we combine that to make it easier to look at and what we have? So the changes that are here, and I can, Coletta, let you speak to that. So this refers to everything that is both income and expense that would fall under the new category of community activities.
Yep. So basically, all that was done was everything that was in the recreation tab has been combined and is being labeled as community activity. But if we go down a little bit further, the other ask was there had been a miscellaneous item in the recreation board for $15,000, which was the amount budgeted for several activities that are planned by the rec board for next year. And the request was to get those itemized out. And you'll see here where in what have we got, 44 through 48. You'll see that each one of those has been itemized.
And the note, and the only note there is that we will be, because we are breaking it out new, will be within the accounting system, creating a new account number for it, so it can be tracked going forward. But this is again, a council wants everybody to have a visibility, transparency.
Right.
And that's what the whole point of the changes we have made to the budget is to provide greater transparency for council and for the residents to know exactly how the money is being spent.
All right. So that was really the only change to the budget that was requested. But we are here and we are going to have a motion. So if in the meantime, over the last couple of weeks, if anyone on council has looked at the budget and has any new questions, this would be a really good time to bring them up.
Yeah. So a couple things. One is to be clear that there's no proposal for a tax rate increase.
No,
for next
none.
year.
Correct.
To be clear, the only things that would be increased are waste management, which is the trash. And we talked about at prior council meetings due to the fact that we had an increase and there's gas and wages and everything else. And the second thing is the sewer fund, which would be the sewage, and that's controlled by Alcoasand. So those are the increases, but from a millage standpoint, this will be the second year in a row that there will be no tax increases on the millage.
Actually, go ahead.
Yeah. And some of that's due to the ARPA funds, the CARES Act and the ARPA funds. So we are being really conscious from a financial standpoint of what our spends are, knowing that those ARPA funds will eventually run out, in 2026, I believe it is. So we're being very conscious around expenses and how we can generate revenue so that we can sustain ourselves without having to raise taxes.
And I think to your point, John, those funds have been earmarked for specific things that council has for a long time had the approval to do, but waited for the funding to do it. Unlike many municipalities that you read in the press who have used the ARPA funds to plug a hole in their budget. This has been a very conscious effort on council's part for a one-time investment for something long approved, as opposed to just throwing it into the general revenue. So yes, there will not be a cliff we will fall off of.
And so the other thing I wanted to mention was with the leadership of Ms. Perry, the Finance Committee, Marilyn, Doug, and everybody involved, including council, in reviewing the budget from a process standpoint. Every detailed line item has been analyzed, asked a question of what's the spend? Are we able to cut? Are we able to remove? What can we do around it? So being really conscious with all of our money from a residential standpoint and being fiscally responsible to have a net income of zero. And that's where this budget lands.
Right.
So I want to acknowledge all the hard work by the committee and the group and our staff related to this project.
And as alluded to, this budget that we're being approved or recommended for publication includes the things like the truck we've talked about. That's not an add-on to it. That's included in here. The budget's process we're talking about for the bond and the separation, the piece of that falls into 2023 is already included. This is not an add-on to it. So this budget is all inclusive.
Yep. All right. So if there are no other issues or questions from council, Marilyn, would you like to drive us through the placemat, the bond worksheet?
Absolutely. It's just, where's that on here? Okay. Okay, what I would like to focus on is a summary section down here. And then I'll be happy to walk through as much of the detail as you choose.
Yeah.
And I have some handout hard copy of the summary section if anybody would like it. But what we have done is taken a hard look at what was actually spent in 2021. And that ties to what has gone through the financial statements was actually spent. We've received some grants, as been mentioned before, that help offset our cost. So what we end up with our actual expense is what we spent, less what we were reimbursed through grants. This is what we actually spent. We started out with money from the bond of 9 million. If we subtract what we've actually spent, this would leave us a bond balance of about a little over 7 million. Physically in the bank at the moment, it's about 6.5. That difference is made up of the timing of when grants are received. For example, there's a $200 grant for the Public Works building that has been approved for work that's been done. It's simply a matter of waiting for that to come in.
200,000.
200,000,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 200,000. Also, we have Alcoasand Grow grants. And we've applied for those, but they will not fund until we've done the work and they inspect it and then they fund. So there's an automatic timing difference on that.
And
Go ahead.
can I interject something here? So basically what we're able to do, because we have this bond money at the excellent rate that we do, we're not having to float bridge loans to
Correct.
pay for, to pay out the contractors and wait for the grant money. So another area where we're being very efficient and thrifty.
And to that point, exactly, we received in 2021, $950,674 in Alcoasand grow grant money that's already come in. So we've been enabled by having the bond money to do the work, get the inspection, and then over 950,000 in grants has come in. So that's where these timing differences are. So then if you look at the next year, you can see that year to date, we have spent 3 million. And the only reason this other number is in here is every month I report to the finance committee on how much we have spent every month. This timing difference is obviously because the borough works on a cash basis, so we don't recognize it until the check is actually out, it clears the bank. That's just the way municipalities work. But your council and your finance committee have been watching this month to month to month. This is not a surprise number at the end of the year for them. So that's not calculated in, it's just a reference number. But again, we've received the 950,000 in grant money that has come in. So we've actually spent out of the bond money 2.3 million. If we take the end of the balance, take it here, subtract what we have spent, we have a balance remaining, calculated balance remaining of 4.1, again, a timing difference. But we are tracking this because if this is available next year, we can carry the balance over and we can go through 2023, seeing what money is projected out to 2023 to be spent along following the same lines. And then what would be left for these other projects they're talking about in 2024 and beyond. So the rest of this report itemizes all the reports, all the projects, when they're spent, how they're spent, and in what period they are allocated. I won't go line by line because the finance committee, the engineering committee and council has gone line by line, but this is available. And again, I have handouts, hard copy, if anybody wants to see the summary.
Marilyn, can we go back to below where we were looking at the differences? So you had highlighted the fund balance per bank statement that you were using, and I guess I'm trying to understand why we're using that number as opposed to what the calculated fund balance ought to
Because
be.
what we're doing is that's the actual cash in the bank that we tie to each month. When we look at cash fund balances. What I'm keeping an eye on with this, and I'm watching each month, is that it truly is a timing difference and not some non-reconciled
Okay, thank you.
excuse. So that's the reason for that.
Okay,
But really, the cash in the bank is the cash we have in the bank.
right.
But we
But-
do watch the track. We have a grant coming in, like the 200,000 that Doug said, yeah, it's approved. We just haven't gotten it yet. That's what that keeps us on track.
Right, and so there's also, some of this money is that we have spent. We don't have the grant money coming in yet because we haven't finished off the requirements and made application to be reimbursed. Is that correct, Doug?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the difference amounts are basically just something that we need to be able to explain and reconcile, right? So that
That's right.
you're putting it up there so that we can see reality versus what's planned, and then we can look at the difference and have a reason as to why.
Exactly, which is where I spent the last couple of days working through the difference. And making
Thank
sure that there were
you.
sufficient pieces of that make that reasonable. Because it is a timing, as long as it's a timing issue, it's understandable. If it were not, Coletta knows me well enough, you would have heard about it.
So are there any questions about that? And what I'd like to emphasize, as Marilyn said, the finance committee is basically, it's been such a busy year with the projects and that sort of thing. This worksheet got a little bit behind, and so now we have it up to date, and the plan is to keep it up to date in the finance committee on whatever timing we decide that makes sense. It may not make sense to look at it monthly, but maybe quarterly. And then probably we'll report it out to council once the finance committee has looked it over.
And I'm sure the future will be a mirror of the past. You think you have a project nailed down until engineering or the weather or Mother Nature makes a change. And then everybody scrambles. And that's why we constantly keep in front of us how much we do have available. So we can be flexible and we can change when we need to.
All right.
And I think part of this is that this is reviewed every single month by members of council that look at any differential that is any differential actually is noted, commented, and researched to make sure that there's justification behind that. So, again, I emphasize how proud I am of this council and being very fiscally responsible and transparent.
Very much. And then one of the last things you had asked me, if you want to go ahead with a vote, go ahead. The other thing you'd asked me to do is have fund balances available. And we can do that too.
Yes, why don't we take a look at those as well?
Okay, and I don't know if I got that, Doug, did you get the dashboard up online? Did we get that? Okay. I didn't see it go through, so I didn't know if it went through. And again, I have handouts I can pass out. I'll keep one and retain one for me that if anybody in the audience wants a copy, you're welcome to it. This is what we sit with the committee every month. And what it reports out is the actual cash balances that reside in the various funds, one of which we already referred to. So anyone looking at this will see that the remaining balance at the end of September for the bond fund would tie to the summary up here of the 7 million that we had talked about was in the bank account. It ties out. But we also look at the general fund and what the balances are. At the end of September, we look at the changes that went in. At the end of September, the general fund had a balance of over 2 million. The road fund had a balance of over 1.5 million. The liquid fuels fund had a balance of about 241,000. That only gets funded periodically. That's not something that comes in monthly. The sewer fund had a balance of 1.9 million. And then we had the capital expenditure fund with about 140,000. But again, we're watching all of these things. We said, this is what we anticipate for the year. Here's where the fund is. If there are transfers made from these various funds into the operating fund, it's accounted for. So we're watching each month to make sure we have the funds. If it's got to come out of the bond, it has to be in the bond fund. If it's going to come out of the road fund, it's got to be in the road fund. So each month we are looking at those and we are looking at the capital expenses as they are lined up. And these are the normal capital expenses, not the bond ones. Things like buying a vehicle, replacing a vehicle, the normal capital expenditures. We're watching those each month as well, making sure the fund balances are still sufficient to meet them. So it's not just a matter of here's the budget, run with it. It's every month, where are we against the budget? Where are we against the funds? What do we have left to spend? And do we have the funding to spend it?
All right. And if there's no questions on any of those, I see that the next item is to the budget resolutions for millage rate, fee schedule, and wage rates. Doug, do you want to itemize those, or where do we?
There it is.
It's right here, yeah.
These are all dictated by what's been in the budget. So these just correspond directly to the budget.
And again, they all match. Again, the millage rate will not change from a real estate perspective. The fee schedule and wage rates are all reflected in the budget based on, these are compensation for our employees. and any fees that we pay. There isn't a vote that we need to do for this at this time, correct?
We'll make them, yes, that's the only action we need is that motion.
Right, for this meeting, yeah. Okay.
So then, that the budget resolution and is tied to the advertisement and public inspection? Okay. I think I was seeing it as two separate things. I got a little bit confused there. All right, so, we do need to make a motion tonight to advertise the proposed budget and to do that. And then the plan is that it will be available for inspection and that at our December 8th meeting, we will take any public comment and then pass the budget.
Vote on passing.
Yeah, vote on passing the budget.
So would anybody like to make a motion?
Sure. Yeah, I'll make a motion to advertise and make available for public inspection the 2023 proposed general road, sewer, and capital fund budgets for adoption at the December 8th, 2022 council meeting.
Seconded.
Comptello. Any discussion? I had one question. Mr. Sample, where would the public be able to inspect these if they wanted to?
We will have it online at the Borough Building, and then we also provide a copy at the library.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes.
All right, and then the final thing for finance and administration is that each year we have to adopt a resolution for our auditors. So the 2022 audit of financial statements of government activities per the borough certification, the council shall annually appoint by resolution by December 31st of each year an independent auditor to make an independent examination of the accounting records of the Borough of Crafton for that fiscal year. And we have had Larry Dussel for quite a number of years at this point. So it's just basically business as usual. There's nothing new here. We're not changing. Costs are not to exceed 13,275, and there's no talk of changing our auditors.
We have a motion, council.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2022-027, appointing Mayor Dussel as Crafton Borough's independent auditor to conduct the 2022 annual financial audit at a cost not to exceed $13,275.
Second.
Second, Mr. Rodilla. Discussion?
Did their fees go up this year or anything? Are we allocating more money this year over last year or?
There was a marginal increase from last year's audit.
It was a 2-year contract. It's on the OneDrive. So there was a 2-year contract and I think it shows the fee for 2021 and for 2022.
If it's nominal, I was just curious.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Ms. Perry, anything else?
I think that's
You have
enough for
you?
tonight.
Okay. All right.
That's all, folks.
Okay. Community Services and Infrastructure, Ms. Compitello.
Sure. First item, we've been listing upcoming grant opportunities lately, which I think is nice to help everyone stay informed about what's upcoming. We are continuing to monitor grant opportunities and continue to be pursuing and applying for grant opportunities pretty regularly. So there are a few that are upcoming. There's an H2O grant that is due in December. There's also a small water and sewer grant that is due in December. And we are we are working towards both of those and considering that those both may be opportunities to make up some of the additional grant funding to put towards the Broadhead project. Given that the grant that we submitted for through Alcoasand didn't give us as much as we hoped. So these are two upcoming grant opportunities that our infrastructure committee and our engineer are working towards. The next item on our agenda is the multi-municipal zoning project update. There's no major news at this time, but as was announced at the last meeting, our consultant has finished the first of their 3 phases. They've published their, they call it a diagnostic report. It's a summary of existing conditions, their findings from meeting with borough officials and analyzing our code for areas that are out of compliance. And they put together some of their initial recommendations that indicate the types of changes that they intend to make to our code. That report has been made available on our website. They also, at our request, put together an executive summary, which goes over the highlights in far fewer pages. And is very well put together. So I do recommend that everyone take a look over on our website and look through at least the executive summary to see what is going on with our code rewrite. They're going into their second phase right now, which is starting the rewrite process. So we should have updates and opportunities for the community to participate in the new year.
And part of it is Ingram too. So they have it separated a bit. You have to watch when you read it, that some is Ingram, some is Crafton.
It is a joint multi-municipal project. So we are working with Ingram, but the deliverable, by doing it jointly, we qualified for additional grant funding. So that was a benefit to us. But the products will be 2 independent codes. We will have our code, they will have theirs. And Doug, could you just indicate where on the website people could find that?
Actually, right on the homepage. If you just go to crafton.com, I'm sorry, craftonborough.com, it's right there.
Very colorful. Front page.
The other item on our agenda is the Crafton Boulevard progress update. There's nothing major on that right now either, but a lot of the work that had been underway over the summer has been wrapped up. And it's nice to be hearing that there is some praise and that some people are appreciating or enjoying the changes that have come from that. The next phase for that project is underway in design phases. That streetscape project will be extended all the way to Noble Avenue in front of the school. We have been in conversations with the school for that portion of it. We are pursuing grant funding. We have several applications out right now to seek additional funding. So that project is not anywhere near construction yet, but it is moving forward at its own pace, and it will be a collaborative effort between the borough, the school district, and also City of Pittsburgh, since that is right along their boundary.
And since our last meeting, the landscaping has been completed along the way, and that's it. The timing had to be now to plant trees and everything else. We can't do it. And any progress on the LED lighting that was approved, the additional street lights?
I don't have any updates on that since our last meeting.
Okay. Okay. Anything else?
That's all for my committee this time.
Good. All right. Community recreation and community events, Mr. Moore.
I know there were a couple items on the agenda, but I actually don't have any updates on any of them. So no updates for me tonight.
Okay. Commission vacancy, Mr. Chandler.
Yes, I will keep this short tonight as well. We do have a couple of current positions that are still open. We have had a few applications for the Recreation Board, one of which that I have been able to interview, and 2 that are still pending scheduling an interview for. So I will say with that we have definitely an alternate position with the Civil Service Commission, a position currently with the Library Board, and upcoming we will have a position with the Zoning Hearing Board at the end of the year. And I will be getting to those interviews just as soon as I'm able to schedule them with the applicants. And with that, if anybody else is interested in applying it for any of these other positions, please do so at craftonborough.com/commissions. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Council of Governments, COG, Mr. Rodella.
Hello, the next meeting is next Thursday at 6:30 in Bridgeville. And just a reminder that next month in December, Crafton will be hosting it. But if anyone wants to come next week, let me know. I'll let the COG know. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, community announcements, the upcoming budget workshop and council meeting. So as Ms. Perry had explained, the budget will be up for adoption at the December 8th council meeting. And that meeting will be at 7:15. The next council meeting, due to all the holidays, will be Monday, November 21st, so less than 2 weeks away at 6:30 p.m. And that's due to the Thanksgiving holiday. The following meeting again will be December 8th. And then at that point, we'll decide about because I think the next one is around Christmas. We need to make a decision on that one soon. All right. One item that I would like to bring up is that one of our council members has resigned. So I do have the resignation letter from that person, which I will read. That person is Philip Lavasser. He has said, "This correspondence serves as my formal resignation from Borough Council. It has been a high honor and privilege to serve this community as a member of council since 2016. Please continue the critical work of," and it's a tiny little text, "investing in our community and constructively collaborating with our local, state, and federal partners on initiatives that will maintain and augment the quality of life for our residents. Please give my warm regards to the employees, council, and mayor. We have achieved many things over the past several years, and the future is bright for the Borough of Crafton." So Philip has been with the borough or lived in the borough for quite some time and is a past president and on council for many, many years. But he has resigned. He, I don't know, I can go into the reasons, but basically it's his professional life has caused him to resign. So advancements in his professional life, but I do want to acknowledge all of the work that he's done. And he's, from a career perspective, this is a good move for him. So with that, we will have an opening on council, and the process that we went through to put Philip on when Ms. Perry had resigned her position as a council member will apply in this instance. So what that is basically the community, the residents of Crafton with 1 year residency are able to apply for the position. And basically the process is there will be an application online. We're going to advertise it on Savvy Citizen, emails, all of those things. Anybody that's interested would apply online. So there will be a form. And then this would also, we'll have a reminder at the November 21st council meeting. Applications will be taken through December 1st. So with the holiday, there's quite a few weeks in between there. Then at the December 8th council meeting, we will accept Philip's resignation. We will conduct interviews. They will be 5 minutes. Each of the candidates will be able to make comments, whatever they want to say, for up to 5 minutes. And then council will be able to ask questions of each of those folks. And then there would be a resolution to accept that person and a vote by council on the candidate that would be chosen for council. At that time, they would then be sworn in to be that council member, and they would be able to sit up here. The term for this position would run through 2023. If they were interested in continuing on, they would have to go through the election process of next year.
I have a question about the timing of this, because we are still going through the budget process and have public comment on that at that meeting as well. Is that too much to do in one meeting if we have a lot of comment on the budget and a lot of interest in the open position? Are we held to that timeline, or is there a benefit to thinking about alternate timelines?
Yeah, so we have from the date of the person's resignation, we have 45 days to accept their resignation, and then 30 days to appoint somebody to the position. So the clock starts ticking today for that. And if we don't have a December meeting past December 8th, then we would run into the issues related to that. Now, what we've done in the past and what we did in January is to start the meeting earlier. So right now, the December 8th meeting is at 7:15. We can push that meeting up to a 6:30 meeting to accommodate that too. With that. Well, I mean, there's what we can do for it. Those are our options for this.
So typically, there usually is no comment on the budget.
Mhm.
I mean, this could be a different year, but we've vetted it. We've had all of these public workshops. So I don't really expect that to take very long. And then, when you're talking about a 5-minute plus some questions, I think there's plenty of time to schedule the meeting at 7:30 and
7:15.
7:15, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Mhm.
And, as usual, and to get through those two main things.
The December 8th meeting? Yeah. Regular. Yeah. Mhm.
I
Yeah.
just
The
misspoke.
next meeting is 6:30, which is the Monday meeting. Then the next meeting is December 8th at 7:15.
Do we have an alternate plan in case things do go long? And but maybe Mayor Perry knows, has more experience knowing how these things go. I do know that I attended one of the budget meetings last year before I joined council, and it ran until 11 o'clock at night. I
Yeah,
had
but
to
that's-
leave because
those are those workshops that we have had. All these last 3 meetings, that's what you're talking about. Well, and then I think that there was. Yeah, those were all during those workshops. So once it gets to advertising, the public has the opportunity to inspect and to come to make any additional comments. But so what you're talking about, we didn't go through this year because everything was in order. And, last year was a lot of changes. We had a lot of old council, that had issues, shall we say? So I expect this to go very, very smoothly, very quickly, pretty much like the rest of our budget workshops have.
And we have a budget workshop after this meeting, correct? Although we've discussed it.
Well, we really have nothing to discuss,
two
but what
additionals.
we did in order to, for advertising and for the chance that we would have had more things to change and to discuss, we allowed for one more budget workshop meeting, which is why we have the 6:30 at the next council meeting, but we have no budget business to discuss.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Marks.
I had a question. I just had a quick question about the vacancy. I know that we had pointed that people would be able to apply on the website. Are we going to have an option for folks to apply at the borough office too?
Yes.
Physically?
Yes, they can fill out the application, will be at the borough office, so they
Cool.
can mail it in. Or they can actually go to the borough office and drop it off in case they don't have email or can't get on the web.
Just making sure.
Yeah, many different options for that. It is the same process that we brought Philip on back in January, so that will be the same process. It's a very fair process. All residents are able to apply for it. They go through the interview and then it's the vote of council. And that's how the appointed seats work. So next year for the election, there will be, that person can run for election if they would like, but their seat will end at the end of 2023. Any other questions on the open council seat? Okay. Public comment. At this time, citizens may address the Crafton Borough Council on any issue. Only residents and taxpayers of the Borough of Crafton will be permitted to address the council. Speakers will be permitted to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Groups of people will be required to designate a spokesperson to represent them before the council, who may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. Please raise your hand on Zoom or here in our audience and state your name and physical address for the record. Yes, Lisa. Yes. Yes, you may.
Lisa Smith, 50 Walnut Street. I want to say three things. One, I'm really liking this new board. I really have to tell you guys, I really appreciate the transparency that we have, the way that we can go online, we can go and we can find everything that we want, and that we conduct these meetings now without screaming and yelling and name calling. And I'm really, really happy with it. The next thing, I guess I should have brought it up in the beginning, but I missed it. The lights on Crafton Boulevard. I told you when it was all done, it was going to be beautiful, and it really is. And when the trees and the bushes come up, but the lights, I thought they were going to be on the sidewalk, and they're not. The little lights are pretty, but they're on the street. And then once all that shrubbery grows up, it's going to put the sidewalk in more of a shadow. So anybody walking along the sidewalk is going to feel like nervous because there's no light. I don't know if we could swing them just a little bit so they're sideways, so they're shedding some light on the sidewalk. It just seems like it was useless if it's just on the road. There's already streetlights up there. So that's that. And then I'd like to bring up the alleyway on Walnut Street. I know that you've looked at it a couple times and it just keeps getting worse and worse. And the more down it washes, glass comes up, nails comes up, screws comes up. I have bought new tires 3 times now. I've had my tires patched. I don't know how many times now because this stuff washes all the way down. My neighbor across the street has had to have new tires put on.
Lisa, what's the issue with the alley?
I don't know.
Okay.
Okay,
What
I really,
happens?
what happens is when it rains real hard, the alley starts washing out. There used to be a berm built up. This was years ago, and a cement truck crushed it, and that started it. And then the asphalt that was there just started crumbling. It's a paper street. That's the problem. And somewhere back in the very beginning, the good old boys knew somebody who knew somebody, and they paved it, and it was fine for, I don't know, 15 years. And then that cement truck crushed the berm, and then the asphalt washed down, and now it's been gravelled. And as soon as it rains, all the gravel washes done, but the rut is so big now that the people that live up there are like riding the hillside, or they're riding my hillside and knocking the salt box down into my driveway. I had to put a new light in my van because they knocked it off the hillside. I know that it's a paper street, but something really, really needs to be done.
Okay. Did you want to address?
Someone else can, or I can, regarding the lights. We had asked that same question. But essentially they were done the way they were because there was a requirement to ensure that the light wouldn't fall on private property. So they had to be situated and angled in a way that the light would fall on public property between the sidewalk and the street, but not infringe over the private property. So I know it's unusual, and we council members asked the same question, but Mayor Perry sounds like she can maybe add.
You're right about that, but one of the things that I have noticed, because I am across the street from the Bradford to Baldwick piece, that there is some lighting on the sidewalk, and generally that sidewalk has more lighting than it has ever had. It's not as bright as what's on the parking area, but that's all I wanted to say, is that it's not like it stops completely. It is less bright on the sidewalk.
And Mr. Sample wants to address the
paper street on Walnut. That was paved by the previous owner when they sold the house.
They didn't pay.
Are we looking at, yeah, so we can talk after the meeting, but it being a paper street, it's all private property. We don't have any jurisdiction. We can't physically do anything with it. We would be violating. The adjoining property owners. Split the street in half. Whoever's on the adjacent properties, get it. Reverts back to them.
Do you guys want to talk? after
Yeah.
the meeting? Yeah, okay. Okay. Anybody else? Yeah. Oh, yeah, Paul. Bob. Okay.
I'm Robert C. Wilbur Jr. I was born here in Crafton. Been here most of my life since 1948. I live at 1 East Steuben Street, and I moved here in 1976. So the athletic field. I know developers want to get as much money as they can out of a piece of property when they're developing it. Has anything been brought up about patio homes? A cluster of 4 units? I know it takes streets and the infrastructure for that, but there's a very nice example up at Old Kane property. It's 4 units. Each side has its own door and entrance with one car garage or 2-car garage. They might be about 1,200 to maybe 1,800 square feet a unit. Very nice 1-story. And me being here and meeting a lot of people through the years, I know a lot of Crafton people that have grown up here would like to stay, but as you get older, you need a 1 floor. So I don't know if that would be feasible for a developer or not, how many they could fit into 5 acres. And I know through the years, so many projects have been brought up, and it's always a fight for traffic. So if they were homes, that would eliminate a high volume of traffic. Because first off, a lot of them are probably retired, so they're not going a lot of places. Or you have a person going to work and then coming home at night. So that would alleviate the question all the time of them building a large building or something with flow of traffic. So.
Yeah, Rob, you had come in late too, Rob. So we had discussed the item, and basically there's no developers, there's nobody that we're looking at. We're basically doing a feasibility study.
Okay.
And what that is a third party is going to come in and look at the whole property and offer options. for
Yes.
it. And that's all we are.
Well,
at right
if you
now.
could plant a seed, hey, the residents would like to see 1-story patio home.
And residential is not off the table here, right? That could
No.
be absolutely options that get brought by the study that we're
It's so-
asking to get
It
done here.
it is zoned for residential. So I think it's a certainty that they will look at what the market value might be with different types of housing. I'm
Right.
sure that they'll consider that.
Okay.
But and again, this is going to be a joint effort between the council and the school district. So you have more than one audience to convince of what the
I understand that.
best uses would be. So
Well,
And-
I just wanted to plant a seed.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Anybody else here? What
So-
about online?
I know we have a hand up on Zoom.
Okay.
Cody, I went ahead and allowed you to speak. Feel free.
Cody Sheets, Promenade Street. I guess that I just want to express like that I don't understand why you're willing to foot the bill and be a good neighbor to somebody who isn't willing to work with you on it. And you know what Jim Shriver did in 2020, whenever this issue came up and there was fallback about it, he ran from it and denied the discussions were ever even happening. You know, so like just the history of dealing with that school board is not in your favor. I mean, I guess if you can make it work, great, but like at what cost? Where's the line? How many more bills are you going to be footing? And like question for the solicitor, I'm kind of like unclear on the deed. Like something about if it's not used for recreational activities, then it immediately goes back to the school district. So like I'm just not really clear on that part of it. If you remember what you said there, if you could just clarify that for me, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Good.
So Mr. Sheets, the deed says that the property remains under the control of the borough so long as it's being used for a municipal purpose, which could be recreation. It could be a lot of things. But if it ceases to be used for municipal purposes, it does immediately revert back to the school district.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Another clarifying point, I don't know if we covered, there's another case where it could go back into the school district jurisdiction with if they need to reclaim it for school use or something, right?
Purposes.
School purposes. So yeah, there are multiple ways that it could leave, the deed could fall back, that whole parcel could be in.
Although that one is mostly off the table at this point because they've already indicated a desire to sell. So they've already given up they've already put in writing that they don't need it. So as far as the splitting.
That they
of the
don't need
bill,
our parcel of land, or the borough's parcel rather.
either of them. That's definitely something that will become much more relevant if anything happens with this, but none of that is particularly having any impact on the study that's being done right now. That doesn't need to get into those kinds of legal, various different case scenarios. Regarding the fee and the splitting of the fee, as the council president said earlier, we did approach the school district and asked to split that cost. They decided not to. The amount of the cost, and I'm speaking for myself, we can all weigh in. We did all meet and discuss this as a council. The cost of the study is relatively low, and this is something that has been impacting our community for a number of years. And so we thought that it was worth making this investment in our community. We know that if the school continues to have issues with their budget, that may impact the tax rates here in the community. And so we saw this as a useful thing to proceed with, even if it's something that we have to take on. But we did take it to the school board and we did try to share the cost, and we thought it was worth doing regardless. And that's my opinion. If anyone else would like to clarify further.
I agree. I think in our discussions, we kind of landed on, we'd rather see things moving forward, even if it's on our dime. Again, just given the relatively low cost here, we line it up against our budget. It's not going to cause any issues. We'd rather be coming to the community with more information and opportunities and chances to weigh in on feasible options than wait because we couldn't get $10,000, $20,000 split between us and the school board. So,
well, I can appreciate that. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Cody. Anybody else? Oh, yeah, Alicia.
I guess I would just like to reiterate that whatever goes on with this property, that, we don't get the most support from the school district for the Little Cougars. Like, I will say that flat out.
Alicia, can I ask so the Little Cougars are what grades? And
K through 6.
K through 6, and are they affiliated with the school district or are they separate?
We're a nonprofit organization.
Okay.
So we are our own organization, but it's our kids in the school district. Okay. So it's all K through 6, Crafton, Carnegie. So I guess the deal that has been worked out for, I don't even know how long, because honestly, this is only my second year with the Little Cougars. So but it's near and dear to me, like just from starting with them last season. I love these kids. I love this organization, and I want to make sure that we are taken care of. If that means that we have to go to the next school board meeting with all 100 kids, and say, don't take our home. Or if you absolutely are saying that you don't need this property, which I guess if that's what they're saying, they've already kind of made up their mind that we're being pushed to the side. I just would ask that everyone here, school board, everywhere, don't abandon these kids. Please make sure that we can continue to have this organization. We are not a huge group compared to some of these other school districts. But what I can see is that those other teams, those other organizations, they seem to be more taken care of in their community, by their community. More available resources, even these smaller areas. But I don't want to ramble. Sorry. I'm just very passionate about taking care of these kids.
And is it football?
It is football and cheerleading.
Football and cheerleading. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and going back to what you said, that almost kind of guaranteed, kind of how you said, we're not going to get left behind. You know, there's going to be a place for us, you know, whether it's this athletic field or somewhere else. I just want to make sure that we are taken care of. Don't leave us behind.
Thank you for coming and expressing that, because that's important. You're a part of the community. And
Yeah. And I don't think a lot of people really know about us.
I would beg to differ. Up here, I am the one who's lived here. I've lived here for almost 30 years. I've been involved with the community for most of that time in one way or the other. And the Little Cougars, they have been here. They have been, you know, it is, you're right. It is part of the community, and it's an important organization. And I can tell you, you know, even in those allowed for discussions in executive session, when the original ideas were being put forth, the fact that Little Cougars was going to need a home has always been on the table. Even in the quote backroom executive sessions and with the school board, we know that we need to make sure that that organization, that your organization has a place to call home. And one way or the other, I believe that the school board and this council will make sure that that happens.
Okay.
And nothing's going to happen like overnight. And you will hear. I will make it my job to make sure that the Little Cougars knows anytime that anything about this Linden property is going to be discussed at the council meeting.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, I know it's not just us that use the field as far as athletics. You know, there are groups like the soccer and the baseball. So, I mean, I personally speak for Little Cougars, but just in general.
Right. No, we know that there are others, but
don't
yes.
leave them behind, please.
All right.
So that's.
If I could just add and maybe clarify, I fully agree with what was said there. And I know that the school board also would like to make sure that the Little Cougars have a place to stay. So, I mean, Mayor Perry is right. We are not unaware and no one wants to leave you out, but just from a pure procedural standpoint, please do also take these concerns to the school board, because we do not control, we are separate entities, and we as a council can support integrating you into whatever we do, but we are actually separate entities.
And I do
Borough
understand
Council and the
that,
school
and I
district.
do
So take
understand-
that to them too.
Right. And I do understand that. And trust me, we will be going to the school board as well. But and this is me personally speaking, that once, this board or this council and the school board are talking, you have now become interlinked. You are now, in my mind, you are together. So if you two are talking, then that involves us. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, but it's good for the school board to also hear, because they're not at these meetings. I mean, Mr. Shriver is here tonight and that's great, but the rest of the school board, they don't necessarily participate in these meetings at council. So it would be really beneficial for you to take that same message to them. That's all I wanted to say.
We already have that plan. So yeah, you'll be hearing from all of us.
In Carlington is Carnegie, Roslyn Farms too. So it's different communities that are a part of the school district versus, this just being Crafton resident.
Right. So yeah, this field not only impacts the Crafton kids, it's Carnegie kids as well. So, but it's the school district. So, okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Alicia. Anybody else here? Anybody on Zoom?
Nobody
right.
on Zoom with their hands up.
All right, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Right.